I never imagined my life would turn out this way. Some nights, after I finally put my son to bed, I just sit on the couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering how much longer I can keep this up. The bills pile up faster than I can count, and no matter how hard I work, it never seems to be enough. Rent is overdue again. The electricity bill is a ticking time bomb and the fridge half empty. Some days I skip meals just to make sure my boy Liam gets enough to eat. I tell him I'm not hungry, but the truth is my stomach aches from the hunger. It wasn't always like this. I used to have dreams, big ones. I was going to be a nurse, help people, make a difference. But then life happened. Liam's father walked out before he was even born, leaving me alone, scared and completely unprepared. I thought I could handle it. I really did. I worked 2 jobs, took night classes when I could, and did everything in my power to give my son the life he deserved. But life has a cruel way of beating you down, little by little, until you're just trying to survive the next day. The worst part? The loneliness. It's suffocating. I don't have the luxury of friends or a social life. There's no time for that when you're working back-to-back shifts just to afford a 1-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood where sirens scream through the night. The only person I really talk to is Liam, and even then I have to put on a brave face. I can't let him see me break, but last night I almost did. Liam had been asking for new shoes for weeks. His old ones were so worn out that his little toes were starting to poke through the front. I kept telling him, "Soon, baby. Mommy just needs a little more time." But the truth was there was no soon. There was no extra money coming, just an endless cycle of working, paying, and falling behind. Then yesterday, his school called. "Miss Carter, I don't mean to alarm you, but Liam had a small accident in gym class. His shoes, they're really falling apart. He tripped while running and scraped his knee pretty badly." I swallowed hard, my fingers gripping the phone so tightly they ached. I wanted to tell them I'd buy him new ones immediately, but I couldn't even afford to fix the car, let alone buy shoes. Instead, I just apologized over and over, promising I'd take care of it. When I picked him up that afternoon, he smiled at me like nothing was wrong. His knee was bandaged, and his little face was lit up with that same innocent joy he always had. "Mommy, I ran so fast today, I almost won the race," he said, holding up his scraped knee like it was some kind of trophy. And that was the moment I felt it, the crushing weight of failure. My little boy was hurting, and I couldn't even give him something as simple as decent shoes. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my bank account. $26.82, that's all I had to my name. Rent was due in 3 days. I buried my face in my hands, my body shaking with silent sobs. I needed a miracle. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache, the kind that comes from too little sleep and too much worry. Liam was already up, sitting on the couch, swinging his legs as he watched cartoons. His shoes, those battered, falling-apart shoes, were neatly placed by the door, as if he still had hope that I'd somehow make them new again. I forced a smile and ruffled his hair. "Morning, baby. You sleep okay?" He nodded, his little face still full of sleepy innocence. "Yeah. Mum, can we have pancakes today?" Pancakes. I hadn't bought groceries in over a week, and the only thing left in the kitchen was a half-empty box of cereal and some milk that was pushing its expiration date. "Maybe tomorrow, sweetheart," I said, kissing the top of his head. "How about cereal?" He didn't complain. He never did. After dropping him off at school, I sat in the car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I had to do something. Anything. I opened my phone and scrolled through job postings. More of the same, positions that either required a degree I didn't have or paid so little it wouldn't even cover daycare. Then I saw it. A post from a local community centre. Emergency Relief Fund applications open. Immediate assistance for families in need. I clicked on it so fast my fingers fumbled. It was a one-time grant meant for single parents struggling to stay afloat. They were offering financial help, groceries, even school supplies for kids. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe. I filled out the application right there in the parking lot, my hands shaking as I typed. I poured my heart into it, explaining my situation, my struggles, how I was just trying to give my son a better life. When I hit submit, I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Now, all I could do was wait. That night, Liam sat beside me on the couch, his head resting against my shoulder. "Mommy?" "Yeah, baby? If I ask Santa for new shoes, do you think he'll bring them early?" I felt my throat tighten. He still believed in magic, in miracles, and I hated that I couldn't be the one to give them to him. "I think Santa's always listening," I whispered, running my fingers through his soft curls. "And sometimes he sends little surprises when we least expect it." The next day, my phone rang just as I was finishing a shift at the diner. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" "Hi, is this Miss Carter?" "Yes, this is she." "My name is Diane. I'm with the community centre. I just reviewed your application and I wanted to talk to you about something." My heart pounded. Did I qualify? There was a pause. Then her voice softened. "We were really moved by your story. Unfortunately, our emergency relief fund is nearly depleted, but... That word hung in the air, making my pulse race. "Here we do have a special outreach program. A few local businesses and donors have taken an interest in helping families like yours. One of them was particularly touched by your application. He wants to meet you." I blinked. "Meet me?" "Yes. He prefers to stay anonymous for now, but he's someone who believes in giving back. If you're comfortable, we'd love for you to come by tomorrow afternoon." I didn't know what to say. I had been hoping for a simple grocery voucher, maybe some extra money for bills. But this? I glanced over at Liam, who was busy drawing in his notebook, humming to himself without a care in the world. "Yes," I said, finally. "I'll be there." I had no idea that decision would change my life forever. The next day, I felt an uneasiness settle in my stomach as I drove to the community centre. I had no idea what to expect. Was this a real opportunity, or was I just setting myself up for disappointment? I'd been let down so many times before that I'd learned not to get my hopes up. But something about this felt different. When I arrived, the receptionist greeted me with a warm smile. "Miss Carter, Diane is expecting you. Right this way." I followed her down a short hallway to a modest but cozy office. Diane, the woman I had spoken to on the phone, stood up as soon as I entered, her expression kind and welcoming. But my eyes were immediately drawn to the man sitting across from her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and unmistakable. Big Shaq. I froze. This had to be a mistake. There was no way. "Miss Carter," Diane said gently, "this is our donor. He wanted to meet you in person." I was still too stunned to speak. Big Shaq stood up, towering over me, but his smile was warm, almost fatherly. He reached out a massive hand and I shook it, feeling as if I were trapped in some kind of dream. "I read your story," he said, his voice deep but kind. "And I just want to say, you're an incredible mother." I opened my mouth, then closed it again, completely at a loss for words. Finally, I managed to stammer, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he said with a chuckle. I just wanted to meet you to hear your story firsthand. I glanced at Diane, still trying to process what was happening. I thought this was just a small assistance program. Shaq grinned. Oh, it is. But I like to take things a little further. I had no idea what he meant until he gestured for me to follow him. We walked out of the office, through the lobby, and into the parking lot. At first, I didn't understand what was happening, but then I saw it. A brand new car. Not just any car, a sleek, silver SUV with a giant red bow on top. I turned to Shaq, my heart pounding in my chest. What is this? He laughed. Your old car. I heard it's been giving you trouble. Consider this an upgrade. I felt lightheaded. No, I can't accept this. This is too much. His smile softened. Listen, I know what it's like to struggle. I've seen people go through hard times, and I've been lucky enough to be in a position to help. This isn't about charity. It's about giving someone who works hard a chance to breathe. Tears burned in my eyes. I covered my mouth, shaking my head. I don't deserve this. Yes, you do, he said firmly. And that's not all. I barely had time to react before Diane handed me an envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a check. A check for $20,000. I gasped, my vision blurring with tears. My legs nearly gave out, and Shaq gently steadied me with a hand on my shoulder. That should help with rent, bills, and whatever else you need, he said. And I heard Liam needs some new shoes. He winked. I took care of that too. I covered my face, overwhelmed. This was beyond anything I could have imagined. It wasn't just a handout, it was a lifeline, a chance to breathe, to finally stop drowning. When I finally looked up at him, I could barely find the words. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you so much. Shaq smiled. Just promise me one thing. Anything, I said without hesitation. He looked me in the eye. When you're in a position to help someone else, pass it on. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I didn't know how or when, but I knew I would. As I drove home in my brand new SUV, my hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. Every few minutes, I glanced at the check resting on the passenger seat, half expecting it to disappear like some cruel illusion. My heart pounded, emotions swinging wildly between joy, disbelief, and gratitude, so overwhelming it left me breathless. Liam was going to lose his mind. I pulled into the parking lot of our apartment complex, the same worn-down place I had called home for too long. But tonight, everything felt different. For the first time in years, I wasn't coming home defeated. I wasn't walking through that door, dreading another night of figuring out how to stretch $1. I climbed out of the SUV, barely able to contain my excitement as I hurried inside. Liam was on the couch, his little feet kicking as he flipped through his favorite picture book. When he saw me, he broke into a grin. "Mommy's home!" I scooped him up in my arms, holding him so tightly he giggled. "Mommy's home," I whispered into his hair, my voice thick with emotion. He pulled back, studying me with those big, curious eyes. "Why are you crying?" "Because I'm happy, baby. Really, really happy." He tilted his head. "Did something good happen?" I took a deep breath. "Come outside with me. I have something to show you." Liam slipped on his tattered sneakers, the ones with the soles nearly coming apart, and followed me outside. When he saw the SUV, he stopped, his mouth forming a perfect little O. "Whose car is that?" he asked in awe. I crouched beside him, brushing his hair back. "Ours, sweetheart. This is our car now." His eyes went wide. "Really? Like, really, 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 really?" His face lit up, and he let out a squeal of excitement, running around the car like he needed to see it from every angle. "This is the coolest car ever! I laughed, my chest tightening with so much love it almost hurt. You want to see the inside? He scrambled into the passenger seat, running his little hands over everything. Mum, this car smells new. It is new, I said, my voice still laced with disbelief. Liam turned to me, his expression serious. Did Santa bring this early? I let out a watery laugh, pulling him into another hug. Something like that, baby. That night, as Liam slept, curled up with his favorite stuffed dinosaur, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the check again. $20,000. It was more money than I had ever seen in my life. I could pay off the past due rent. I could finally buy groceries without calculating every penny. I could get Liam clothes that fit, shoes that didn't have holes, a bed that didn't creak every time he turned over. But more than anything, for the first time in forever, I could breathe. The next morning, I made a plan. The first stop was the leasing office, where I paid off everything I owed and put down a deposit for a better apartment, a safer one with a playground where Liam could actually be a kid. Then we went shopping. I let Liam pick out whatever shoes he wanted. He chose a pair of bright red sneakers running up and down the store to test them out. Mom, these make me run faster, I laughed. I bet they do, baby. For once, I didn't have to say no. We got clothes, groceries, and enough household supplies to last us months. But even with all that, I knew I had to do something more. Shaq's words echoed in my mind. When you're in a position to help someone else, pass it on. So I went back to the community centre. I found Diane and handed her an envelope. This is for the next family who needs it. She looked inside, her eyes widening. Miss Carter, this is... I know what it's like to feel hopeless, I said softly. And I know how much one act of kindness can change a life. Someone did that for me. Now I want to do the same. Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded. You have no idea how much this will mean to someone. I smiled. I did.